Morgan, how did you walk away from college with $100,000 in the bank, 6 internships, and 0 debt?
Do I go somewhere that has good prestige but is going to put me $90,000 in debt? Or do I go somewhere where I can effectively get paid to go to school? I literally invested over 70% of my post-tax internship income. I have now spoken at colleges that are way above caliber that I could have ever dreamed of getting into. I've spoken at Harvard, I've spoken at Columbia, I've spoken at Penn, and spent $2,000 to attend the conference, got a 6-figure job offers.
You mentioned how you were hated by most of your computer science classmates. Why?
It was very well known that I did not take school seriously, but I was the same kid that was getting all the internships, the fellowships, and all the opportunities. And that was for 2 reasons. Most of us are fed the lie that like, oh, if you get a 4.0, that'll automatically materialize into a job.
You were writing viral LinkedIn posts during your 7 a.m. CS class, and then got featured by LinkedIn News 30 times in 1 semester, became a top voice, and turn that into Harvard speaking gigs and passive income.
I know way too many people that have so much great knowledge in their head and they have not shared it with the world, and that's unfortunate. I did a post in 2022. It was 5 things I learned in my Disney internship. So simple. But that post went so freaking viral. The intrinsic value that we have as people is the lives that we've lived and the stories we have to share and the perspectives that we have to share. That is what gives you value. I thought my profile was intriguing, but we are at a point in history where we have more students majoring in CS than we ever have before. You need to post.
Morgan, how did you walk away from college with $100,000 in the bank, 6 internships, and 0 debt?
It's a long story with a lot of steps. The first step was that I went into college with a bunch of scholarships, and I actually chose the school that I was going to go into based on that. So I know a lot of people when they're choosing colleges kind of make a decision based on like social capital and prestige. For me, I didn't get into like the prestige colleges I wanted to get into. So that kind of left me with a choice of, do I go somewhere that has good prestige but is going to put me $90,000 in debt? Or do I go somewhere where I can effectively get paid to go to school? And I chose the latter. So I graduated debt-free because I had scholarships to pay for school. And then I graduated with $100K in the bank, partly because I did have a bit of a head start. I was a child actor. So a decent amount of my money, not all of it, but a decent amount of my money was made before I turned 18, which is crazy. But then the second part of that was when I got my first internship, which was effectively my first big girl job, big girl money. It was 2021, COVID. I wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't going out. I wasn't going out to eat. I wasn't really buying any clothes because I had nowhere to go. So I literally invested over 70% of my post-tax internship income. And I didn't quite do it as aggressively in the summers following, but I did try to maintain about 50 to 60% of my post-tax income invested. So that's how I ended up with the $100K in the bank post-college.
Nice. So how did you pay your bills during school? Was it from the internships or was it something else?
So during the summer, that's how I paid my bills, because I wasn't getting any of my scholarship or academic funds during the summer because I wasn't taking classes during the summer. So it was all internship. But then during the year, I had a presidential scholarship, which was the second highest scholarship that my school offered. And it was basically full tuition. And then I'm a military child and my dad served in Middle East. And so I got post 9/11 GI Bill benefits, and that was helping me pay for my housing and books, although I don't think I paid more than $500 for books and materials throughout all of college because I was basically getting PDFs from other people and stuff like that.
Nice. So my question here is, do you think it's worth going to a school where you can save on tuition, meaning you get some scholarships, it's maybe a school in your home state, versus trying to go for a super expensive private school?
Absolutely. Here's the thing. I have mixed feelings and opinions about it because I feel like I have a very unique perspective on college because of what I went through as a student and then also what I've done after, because I have now spoken at colleges that are way above caliber that I could have ever dreamed of getting into. I've spoken at Harvard, I've spoken at Columbia, I've spoken at Penn, and I have friends at all of those schools now. And I've truly like seen the difference between going to a school like mine and going to a school like theirs. The biggest thing is the campus culture, because all of their schools, like think your Berkeleys, your Stanfords, your Harvards, have what I call a very career and industry oriented campus culture. Mine did not. So like while all of those kids are like recruiting for like consulting clubs and like getting amazing experience on their resume and just spending the entirety of college prepping for internships and fellowships and post grad, my school is not like that. Like my school is just your generic state school or kind of a party school, sports school, that kind of thing. So I now know the difference like between the two. And my opinion is this: if you have the financial means, as in you're not going to get into insurmountable debt to attain that level of prestige of degree, and you got in, by all means do it. But if you don't, then I would say make the more financially responsible decision, because the thing about social capital and prestige, and I think we've really seen this in the last 2 years, I would say, is that social capital and prestige in college does not always translate to a great paying job at a prestigious company, like with the job market in the last 2 years. So I think that because it's like not a sure investment, like you're not sure if you're ever going to see the return on that investment, make the more financially responsible decision. That being said, something you said about in-state, I actually wasn't in-state. I'm actually from California. And so like my whole life, my parents, raised me in California, and they're like, you're going to go to a California state school. We have one of the best, university state systems, state university systems in the country. And then I did the math. The two UC schools I got into was SD and Santa Barbara. And it actually would have been more expensive for me to go to those schools than to the school I ended up going to, which was the University of Nevada, Reno. So it's not always necessarily like the school in your home state. You just kind of have to like be creative with like your research. I think one of the most criminally underrated and undertapped resources is the fact that so many states that don't have as like highly ranked state university systems are very, very generous with their scholarship grants. So that's like, I guess my word of advice is like, don't even just limit yourself to like in-state, but like look around at different colleges and see what they're willing to offer you. Almost make it like a job offer situation. Like, if one college is willing to offer you more, then go for that. So yeah, just be creative with it. But I think personally, I would say make the more financially responsible decision.
I feel like people don't realize that colleges are a business. And you can totally negotiate. You can go from school to school. You can use offers against each other. We had a family friend who I believe she got into like U Chicago Law School and then also NYU Law School or something. And she was like using them against each other. Also Michigan. She said to the admissions officer, hey, I have an acceptance at NYU. Can we get a scholarship? Or U Chicago? Telling Michigan, I actually got into these two schools, and it actually worked. So I don't think people realize that opportunity is there. One question I have here is, my sense is that if you're going to go like $100K, $200,000 in debt, I feel like using those resources for like other opportunities other than just your school tuition could net a higher return. Like I would rather go to like a smaller school or like a less like quote unquote prestigious school, but then deploy like $100K for career mentorship opportunities, networking, flying around, getting coaching, stuff like that. And I feel like the net outcome I would create there would be, to me at least, would feel farther. Do you agree with that or do you disagree?
100% agree with that. And you can do a lot with 100 to 200K. That's the crazy thing. And like personally, as far as you mentioned, like travel and conferences, during college, I probably spent around 10 grand on conference travel, and 100% worth it. Like the conference I went to was Grace Hopper Celebration, which I'm going to again next week, actually. I went to it my senior year because that was the only year that I could like realistically afford it. And I ended up walking away with a 6-figure job offer. I didn't take it, but it was still like, spent $2,000 to attend the conference, got a 6-figure job offer. So definitely see the ROI there. And also like even taking a bet on yourself of like, instead of spending 100 to 200K on a degree, maybe use it to bootstrap a startup. Who knows? And obviously, like all of those things are risks, but so is going to a college and getting 200K in debt. Like everything in every decision you'll make in life is a risk, but I think some have a better chance of paying off than others. And because college to career, like the transition is such like a black box, it's a lot harder to determine if that money will be worth it in the long run. And the other issue is that too many people don't actually take advantage of the social capital that comes with going to one of those schools, which makes it even harder to see the ROI there. But I'm 100% in agreement with you. Like, if you would rather spend, or if you have the choice to, spend 100K on something else, taking other career risks during college rather than spending it on a degree that you don't know if will pay off, I agree with doing that. Yeah.
For sure. And also, the classes are basically the same.
Yeah.
Like, if you take algorithms at a state school versus Harvard, maybe Harvard is slightly more difficult, but it's not like you're learning 5 times as much in the same exact course. It's basically the same information. And what people don't realize is that even if you go to these like big fancy name schools, you'll be around more quote unquote competitive and motivated students, but the school itself is not teaching you those skills. It's the other people there. So my brother went to UC Berkeley. He studied computer science. I have friends who also went to environments like that. And they talk more about, it wasn't the professors. The professors were not great at teaching. They were there for research. It was the other students who were motivated, going for internships at big tech companies, quant companies, right? And they learned from each other. So if you could just pocket the 200K, spend that on traveling to conferences, doing hackathons at these schools, making friends with the people at the same schools, you can get almost all of the benefit for the fraction of the price.
I agree. And I would also agree with it's the other students. And that was something I definitely struggled with. Like, truth be told, I am friends with 2 people that I left school with. Like, I graduated a little over a year ago now, and I'm literally only still friends with 2 of the people that I met in college, one of them being my boyfriend. And so I struggled with that. I did not meet a lot of other people at my school that were like super, super ambitious. And it wasn't even just like I didn't meet people that were hardworking, because I met plenty of people that were hardworking. It was just like vision. Like, I joined my school's entrepreneurship club my freshman year, and I dropped out after the first year. And my mom was really surprised, because she was like, it seems like you would really enjoy that. Why'd you drop out? And I said, well, I joined thinking that there were going to be other people that would have these, I heard this saying from a founder last week, but delusions of grandeur, of like being able to start a big, the next tech unicorn or whatever. Like, I watched way too much Social Network in college, or not college, high school. I watched that movie over and over and over again. So I had these delusions of grandeur, and everyone around me, like in the entrepreneurship club, just wanted to like start a lifestyle business. And I was like, that's not really like my thing. And it wasn't just that. It was that I felt like people around me lacked big vision in general. When I talked about like going to work for Disney, that was like this monumentous thing. And I agree. It was like one of the, proudest achievements I've had, but it wasn't where I wanted to like, that wasn't like the peak of my achievement. I was like, I want to do more than that. And I struggled to find people that understood that, and also understood why I did what I did. Like, my junior and senior year, I was taking on so many classes. My junior fall semester was the hardest. I had a 15-unit course load. I had a part-time internship and 2 venture capital fellowships at the same time. And people saw me there. I was working probably 70 to 80 hours a week with everything combined. And everyone around me was like, you are crazy. And I'm like, yeah, I know. But nobody really understood that. And so I really struggled. And I think that's why I didn't have many friends coming out of college. But on the note of spending money to go to hackathons and this and that, I met so many of the friends that I still have today. I happened to meet them during college, but I did not meet them at college. So like, one of my really closest friends, I met him, we were put together on a team for a consulting competition, and we basically trauma bonded throughout that competition. And now we're like still really good friends, and I still talk to him. And for me, that was a better use of my time and money, and also to make friends. Sometimes I didn't have to spend money to get those opportunities. I got paid to go do those opportunities, but it was a much better way for me to like find those people. So that's kind of another difference I talk about campus culture, is that if you go to a school like mine that's not like well ranked or high prestige or whatever, you're not necessarily going to meet the people that are hustling and have like the big vision, but you can still meet people that way, or you can still meet people that are like that. Just, you have to get a little bit out of your comfort zone and take a few extra steps to do it.
You mentioned how you were hated by most of your computer science classmates. Why?
It was for 2 reasons. Number 1 was that I think that like my appearance and my existence in general annoyed people, because for the first 2 years of college, I really tried blending in and just being like fading into the background, basically. And what that involved was like not dressing up for a class, even though like I am a person who enjoys dressing up and I would just wear like sweats or jeans to class. And also this is not true. I don't want to like make a generalization, and this is certainly not true for every CS department at all colleges, but mine had a very catty culture amongst girls where like it was there's only room for one of us type mindset. And so I am a girl who enjoys having female friends. Like I have some male friends, but I have mostly female friends. And it wasn't like that. So I had a hard time like making friends, first of all, because every girl kind of wanted to stick to their own group of like guys, and that just wasn't my thing. But the second reason, and this was probably the bigger reason that I wasn't well liked, is because it was very well known that I did not take school seriously. After my freshman year, even in my freshman year, I barely showed up to class. In my senior year was the worst. I think I probably showed up for like 3 classes the entire semester, which was just to take midterms and finals and then like the first day. And I was not only I was blatant about not caring about school because I was too busy doing other things. Like literally in my programming languages class, I'd be writing LinkedIn posts instead of paying attention. And the grades that I got proved that I didn't care about school that much. But I was the same kid that was getting all the internships, the fellowships, and all the opportunities. And that was for 2 reasons. Number one, and this is a hot take, I have a personal belief that in college, it's very hard to have a 4.0, do internships, fellowships, and all the career stuff, and also have a social life. One's got to give. And for me, I was not willing to give my social life. So I would have rather let my grades drop. So I worked on all the career stuff and I maintained my social life. My grades were not that great, but it didn't matter because most of the industry, unless you're like recruiting for quant or grad school, they don't really care. So that was like, I would say the primary reason I wasn't liked is because I was blatantly not caring about school and I was getting all the opportunities. And the problem is most of us are fed the lie that like, oh, if you get a 4.0, that'll automatically materialize into a job. Yeah, that is the worst lie we've ever been told. I remember, and this is like a memory that's ingrained in my head forever, my senior year machine learning class, taking our final exam, the guy who sat kitty corner to me, I heard him stressing out because he said, I really need to get an A on this final because I need my 4.0. I did not do any internships or research during college, so my 4.0 is all I have. And as soon as he finished that sentence, I cringed because I was, oh my God, like that's not going to help you. Like if you have a nothing but a 4.0, that is not going to help you. And I just never forget that because that is a prime example of like how our priorities get messed up in college because 4.0 really doesn't matter at all.
Listen up. If you're struggling to land an amazing software engineering full-time job or internship, or if you submitted dozens of applications and you feel like nothing is working, or if you failed multiple online assessments and interviews, or you just feel like you don't understand the process to land a great offer in the market of today, I actually run a school for people like you called the Software Engineering Accelerator. Now, over the past year, we've helped dozens of people land incredible jobs at internships at companies like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Tesla, Salesforce, Adobe, LinkedIn, Capital One, MongoDB, JP Morgan, and the list goes on. And the best part about our program is that we actually guarantee the outcome. If you don't get the full-time job or internship you want, you don't pay. So if you'd like to work directly with me and my team of FANG recruiters and engineers to land an incredible job in tech guaranteed, click the top link in the description and submit an application to join us. If you look at someone, let's say they have a 3.0, but they have tons of internships, tons of opportunities, been to so many hackathons, just a wealth of experience compared to a 4.0 with nothing. The 4.0 is cool. It's like cool flex, bro, but you're not actually going to get any career opportunities. And genuinely, the point of a computer science major for the vast majority of people is to get a job, right? Like very few people go to do a computer science degree because they want to be a professor or be in research. And some of those people are out there. And sure, maybe for that very small niche, your GPA makes a huge difference. But if your goal is to get a high-paying job in tech, which is the vast, vast, vast majority of computer science majors are, then why would you over-prioritize your GPA and under-prioritize your actual work experiences? I think another underrated hack is taking like the bare minimum easier courses so you can actually have the time to do internships, right? Like there are people out there who they kind of like get high on their own supply of doing like 6 really hard CS classes at once, like elective things that you don't actually need to graduate. And then they don't have any time to do recruiting stuff, applications, interviewing, networking. They don't have the capacity to do any of that. And therefore they're screwed when they graduate and they don't have any experiences. So tell me more about like the techniques that you used to land all of these internships in college if you didn't focus in your classes as much.
Yeah. So actually, you talked about like time. Time is your most precious resource in college because, for the most part, for most people, you only have 4 years. But it was so funny actually because my biggest advantage my freshman year, because I was a COVID kid, I started school in August of 2020. I spent 20% of my freshman year paying attention in class. I spent another 20% partying and socializing. I spent the rest of the 60%. So the majority of my time recruiting for internships. They always say, they joke that like, oh, recruiting is a full-time job. Yes, it is. And I treated it like a full-time job. I wouldn't even go to class. We had Zoom classes. My friends were like, all you have to do is log into the Zoom and you're not even doing that. I'm like, I know, because I'm busy applying for internships. I remember there was a week I ditched class for a full week. I ditched class all semester, but I ditched class for a full week because I had like 4 or 5 interviews that week. But that was way more important. Are you kidding me? So as far as my like the techniques that I used, it's a numbers game. If you're applying with no experience, it's a numbers game because you're competing against people that do have experience. And when I say it's a numbers game, it's just about getting your resume on the desk of the person who is willing to take a chance on you. And in order to find that person, you're going to have to do a lot of numbers. For me, that number was 150, which is nothing, I know, in comparison to today's numbers. It was a very different job market 4 years ago. But I sent out as many applications as I could, and that helped. But then the interesting thing about, sending out a huge number is that I like to treat everything in my life as a miniature study, and that's how I was treating my internship process. After the first 75 I sent out, I only had 2 interviews, and I knew, by some standard, that's a good percentage, but for me, it wasn't. I was like, I'm doing something wrong, clearly. So I kind of went back to the drawing board, and after one of those 2 interviews, I got some very interesting feedback from a recruiter, and it was hard to hear, but it was very needed. So I overhauled my resume. My entire goal with writing my resume was proving that I had what it took to compete against a junior or a senior. And my battering ram was my project portfolio. So I overhauled my resume and that helped. And then I started getting more interviews. And then on top of that, I kind of looked at my resume and took stock of what I had done. And I realized that 3 out of the 4 projects I was talking about on my resume were iOS native mobile apps. So then I niched down and started applying for every single mobile or iOS development internship role that I could find. And then I started getting a massive hit rate. I had out of those second set of 75, I got 8 first rounds, and most of them were for mobile or iOS development roles. And the reason that worked so well is partly because I just had less competition. Most universities in the United States do not teach mobile or iOS development specific courses, or if they do, it's an elective you take in your junior and senior year. But I had all this experience because I started making apps when I was in high school. So that was when I really started to get more interviews and as a result, more offers. That was my technique for that. But another thing, and this actually helped me get my first 2 internship interviews, was my LinkedIn. I did not have a following at the time. I literally just had a profile that was SEO optimized, which I was shocked that I understood SEO at the time because I wasn't like a digital marketing major or anything like that. But it's very simple. If you spam software engineer intern enough times in your LinkedIn profile, recruiters use a product called LinkedIn Recruiter to find potential applicants for jobs, and spamming the words software engineer intern throughout my profile was helping recruiters find me. I got recruited for Capital One Software Engineering Summit as a freshman. I got recruited for a defense firm that got acquired by Accelerator later, and that was how I got my very first interview. And then my second interview was because a local startup CEO had found me because he was looking for a replacement for his current intern from the university. And I guess he just thought my profile was intriguing, but that ended up materializing into an offer. Another thing that helped materialize offers as cover letters. I know that that is a hard one because it's like you're already applying for so many internships. It's really exhausting to think that you'd have to write a personalized cover letter for each one. And I would say don't. I didn't write a personalized cover letter for each internship. I had one template. It was like generic. It told my story and it like shared the value that I could bring to the table. But I had a one template that said insert company name, insert job title. And I would just copy, paste for every single internship I was applying for. What was crazy about that was that ended up resulting in an interview with SAP, which was my second big offer of my freshman year. And when I talked to the hiring manager, she opened the conversation with this. She goes, you know, Morgan, I actually haven't read your resume yet because I've only read your cover letter and I gave you the interview just because of that. And I was like, really? Because it was just a generic cover letter. And I said, why? Just like, why would you give me an interview without reading my resume? And she said, because no one does that anymore. And I was, wow. Like, because this lady, I think she was probably in her late 40s, early 50s. We forget that a lot of the people that are in control of hiring processes are still old school. They're, you know, again, they're boomers, Gen Xers, et cetera. And cover letters are like common practice for their day and age. And while I get that that's like irritating because you have to take an extra step, if it results in just one more offer or just one, oh my gosh, one offer for you, to me, it's worth it. And now, even now, like I still write cover letters because of that one moment in my life.
Yeah, the way I think about it is to get an offer, you have to reach a certain standard, right? It's like, let's say you have to score above an 80 out of 100 or something in some metric to actually get that offer, right? If you hit 78 or 79, it doesn't cut it. It's binary, right? You get the offer or you don't. So it's worth stacking the deck in your favor for maybe a smaller number of companies, right? Like I would rather you put all of your effort towards getting referral, networking, writing great cover letters for a few, like somewhat less companies, because then you maximize your shot of actually getting over that hurdle. So what's your cover letter framework for someone who's trying to get a software engineering internship or job today?
First thing is it should be one page and it should be like a 12-point font. It should not be long and it shouldn't take someone a million years to read because that's a lot. It's true. Some recruiters, I've heard a lot of recruiters say, I don't read cover letters. So that's why you also need to keep it short because I would say after like 100 of those internship applications, maybe 10 people read the cover letter. So you don't need to put too much effort into it, but it should tell your story, kind of like an elevator pitch. I personally, for my elevator pitch, I use they call it past, present, future framework. I do it present, past, future framework. I'll basically say what I'm doing right now, what I've done in the past that has shaped my interests and how I've gotten to where I am now. And then I tie all of that present past experience into what I hope to accomplish in the future, which in the context of a job interview should be that job. As a student doing internships, I think I opened with, I'm an honors student at the University of Nevada, Reno, studying computer science and computer engineering, blah, blah, blah. And then I talked about my projects and my experience. And this was like when I had no experience. I talked about my experience in Girls Who Code and Code with Klossy and like different boot camps and projects, particularly when I was applying for like iOS development internships. I talk about an app that I developed in high school and got on the App Store. That was always something that I got asked about in my interviews because it's not hard to get an app on the App Store per se, like with technical ability. It's just a lot of red tape to get past and it shows persistence. So try to like have something that is very intriguing on your cover letter, just one thing, but then just make sure you tell like your story of what you're studying, who you are, your background, how you got interested in whatever it is you're studying, and then what you would bring to the table, list your project portfolio, etc. It's really not rocket science.
Yeah, kind of going back to when you mentioned how you were skipping class to focus on what actually mattered. I think this is a very common trait in entrepreneurial people. Yeah. We struggle to do things we think are stupid. So that was me in high school. Like I still did fine, but I struggled to like do busy work, sit in class, do things I just thought were stupid. Like I would often just not do readings in class. It was like I would either skim it or just like look up a summary and be completely fine because I just felt like I just didn't want to do it. I didn't think it was actually valuable. And same thing in college. Like I would do the classes, but I wanted to focus more of my efforts on what I felt like was actually going to create a net impact, which was career stuff and then also content creation, right? So do you resonate with that? Do you feel like you struggle to do things you think are stupid?
Absolutely. And I think that's why I had such a hard time getting through college. And I know I'm neurodivergent, and one of my traits of my neurodivergence is I have a mild issue with authority. And it's not that I can't do what people tell me to do, it's just that I hate it when people try to. It's not, I don't hate people telling me what to do. I hate it when people try to tell me how to do things. And I think that's why I had such a hard time getting through college because I didn't like that a lot of professors were like, you need to do it this one way. And it's like, well, no, if there's a better way to do it, or if there's another way to do it, or a more efficient way to do it, why wouldn't I do it that way? Why do I need to do it the hard way? That's stupid. So that was what I had a hard time with. It wasn't so much that and I didn't think that a lot of the things in college were necessarily stupid, but I thought the way that they told me how to do it was stupid. So I would agree with that though. I'm definitely a person who like college was not easy for me. I struggled through most of it, and it wasn't because I was stupid or lacked the intelligence to get through it. I just thought a lot of the things that I was doing were like not worth my time. And also the other thing is oh God, I'm not trying to encourage this, but a lot of things in college, like essays and papers and stuff like that. And I will say I probably have a biased opinion because writing has always come easy to me. But I remember again, freshman year, I was either doing one of two things. I was either partying or applying for internships. It was binary. But there was this one Sunday I had like gone out on Saturday and stayed out all night, and I had an essay, a 9-page essay due on Sunday night, and I think I wrote it in an hour and a half. And I wasn't even like, I had no coffee. I had no like supplements or anything like that. And I turned it in and thinking, oh gosh, I just wrote this in an hour and a half. This is horrific. Like, this is going to be like the worst grade ever. I had the highest score in the class, and my professor came back and told me it was an argumentative paper. He goes, that was one of the most well-reasoned, well-thought-out, well-argued papers I've ever wrote. And I'm like, well, he doesn't need to know I wrote it in an hour and a half, like literally 2 hours before the deadline. So I think that like, people will spend so much time on things in college and think that, going the extra mile is going to help you. Like going the extra mile to get an A versus an A plus, or they don't even have A pluses in college, or getting even like an A versus a B, it's not really worth it. And I have like a real example of that for a computer engineering class I took. We had to make a swamp cooler for our final project, and my ex was on a different team, and I was still friends with some of our mutual friends. And they told me after, they were like, yeah, he wanted to do this like big extra thing because he had made swamp coolers before and he wanted to go the extra mile on this project. You know what they ended up getting? A C. And I was like, wow. So, and I ended up getting a C too, but we did the bare minimum. So I was like, okay, clearly going the extra mile didn't help very much.
Yeah, I strongly believe in the 80-20 principle where you can put about like a minimal effort to get the majority of the results. And maybe you're not going to get like an A or a high A, right? But to eke out those marginal gains, to go from like an 85% in the class to like a 95 or 98%, you probably have to put double or even triple the amount of work in. So if you can just divert that energy towards things that actually matter, i.e. recruiting, networking, going to conferences, events, stuff like that, you're going to eke out a much higher return. And I kind of want to use this as almost like a PSA to people who kind of resonate with us, who don't feel like not that you can't do college, but it's like, it just feels kind of useless, right? Kind of annoying, kind of useless. And you often find yourself wanting to just do the minimal amount of work to get the outcome. That's often considered like a negative trait, like lazy, not motivated, right? But I think that's a very positive trait, right? Like, why would you want to do more work to get the same outcome? That makes no sense. And like in the entrepreneurship world, the smart person is the person who can actually figure out how to do the least amount to get the most outcome. So I strongly believe in everything you're saying there. One question I have is, do you think computer science is oversaturated?
Yes and no. I think that I know for a fact that we are at a point in history where we have more students majoring in CS than we ever have before. And I can even see that in my own college, because when I started, College of Engineering was not the biggest college. College of Science was, and CS was not even close to being the most popular major in engineering. I think it was mechanical engineering that was the most popular. By the time I graduated, College of Engineering was the biggest, and CS had become, by a large margin, the most popular major, so much so that they actually thought about splitting it into 3 majors to avoid violating our 15-to-1 student-to-professor ratio. So it's definitely more than ever before. And I do think that we're in a very weird time. A good friend of both of ours, Colin, he actually said something to me that applies to everybody, not just CS majors, but he said that the career ladder is being pulled up, and because of AI, basically. And a lot of companies are, who's to say where we're going to be in 5 years? But I know a lot of companies are experimenting to see if they can use AI to replace entry level everything, not just software engineers. But that is obviously affecting CS majors and the job market. So I think that we're at a point, I can't say for certain because I don't know enough about it, but I think that there are probably more CS majors in the country than there are postgraduate opportunities, which is why we're seeing a lot more people like do a master's degree or delay graduations, et cetera. But I do think I've watched the CS major like declaration of being a computer science major and the CS related job market. It's kind of like a sine curve. And it's roughly every 5 years because in 2020 to 2021, we got to a point where there was a boom of CS jobs and not nearly enough CS graduates to fill it, which is why we were seeing crazy, 200, 300K new grad offers. And then it like went up in 2022. We kind of hit a peak and then it started falling down and now it's kind of crashing. But I do actually think that I firmly believe that this sine curve will continue and that right now it sucks because there's, like I said, every company is experimenting with AI and they think they can outsource everything. No matter what happens with AI, I think that we're going to go through another period where less people are going to do CS because I saw a post on Reddit and it shocked me. And somebody said, is accounting the new CS? And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. But it's kind of a signal, right? That people are not starting to see CS as like the instant gold mine major. And I think more and more people are not going to do it. And we're going to go through that downslope again where there's going to be less CS majors. And I think actually conversely to what people think, because of the AI boom, I think there will be a lot more CS jobs, not right now and we're not going to see it right now, but maybe in 2 to 3 years, there'll be a lot more and it'll just require like more specialty training. Like I'm sure every college is going to institute maybe even an AI major or something like that to prepare for that. But I think that we'll go through that evening out again. There'll be another boom in like 2 to 3 years and it'll keep going. Like I said, it's a sine curve and I think it'll continue being a sine curve.
Yeah, those who are saying that accounting is a new CS, I think they just need to like think twice about that because low-key accounting is easier to outsource to AI than computer science.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, a lot of entry-level accounting is just like rote, like going through lines, right? And just like checking numbers here, like categorizing expenses, providing like low-level input to people. And that can just very easily be outsourced by AI and is already being outsourced by AI. So let's talk LinkedIn. You were writing viral LinkedIn posts during your 7 a.m. CS class and then got featured by LinkedIn News 30 times in one semester, became a top voice, and turned that into Harvard speaking gigs and passive income. So for the average computer science student who wants even 1% of those results from LinkedIn, where do they start?
You need to post. I know way too many people. I was just having a conversation about this yesterday. I know way too many people that have so much great knowledge in their head and they have not shared it with the world. And that's unfortunate, but you got to take that first step of posting. But everyone thinks that for some reason, everyone thinks you need to be an expert to post about something online, and you really don't. If anything, I think that the amount, like, it's funny because we're on a podcast right now, but I think like the recent saturation we've seen in podcasts, I think that just proves in and of itself you don't need to be an expert to talk about whatever it is that you're talking about. Because if that were the case, we'd have like a million less podcasts. So you don't need to be an expert in what you're talking about. I really like to embrace the word thought leader, which I know makes a lot of people cringe. But the point in being a thought leader is you're not an expert, you're not a guru. And I have a really rogue opinion, which is I don't really know if experts truly exist because there's always something more to learn. And like the things that we study and, become fascinated with are constantly being updated. Like, there's a reason that if you work in engineering or in the medical field, you have to constantly take recertifications to update your knowledge because things are always changing. So I don't really know if I necessarily even believe in the concept of an expert, but I do believe in the concept of a thought leader, of constantly sharing what you are learning and sharing your perspectives and your opinions. And hey, you may turn out to be proved right or wrong in the future, but the point of being a thought leader is that you're constantly learning. And I personally really, that's something that's always really resonated with me. So when you're thinking about, oh, well, like I don't have the expertise to post. No, like you're just posting about what you're learning and you're sharing it with the rest of the world. So I would say that's where to start is post, but also know that posting when you start, I always laugh about this because people you have to you have to do a bunch and it's going to be bad at first and you'll get better at it later. And that is 100% true. When I look back at my first LinkedIn post, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like, I can't believe I wrote that. But I had to do that. I had to get through those first 1,000 or so posts to get better at it. And people have asked me how I've like tried to improve my writing and my storytelling ability. And I hate to be that person, but there's no shortcuts. There's no escalators. There's no elevator. I write 10,000 words every week, and that's an average. So sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, but that's how I've gotten better at writing. So, but it's also great. It's a great exercise because being able to express yourself and communicate your ideas is probably, in my opinion, one of the most valuable possible skills, not even just in your career, but in your life. So I would say in terms of anybody that wants to achieve 1% of what I've done, just start posting. That's where it starts.
Really quick, guys. I've personally worked with hundreds of computer science students and software engineers to help them land incredible, high-paying jobs in tech over the past few years. And from that experience, I put together a resource breaking down the top 5 lessons I learned throughout that process. We'll go through the biggest mistakes people make when trying to land a job or internship in tech and everything you need to kickstart your software engineering career. It's available completely for free at amanmanazir.com/7dayengineer or check the link in the description. On the note about experts not being real, people are so obsessed with this idea of like, this person's an expert, this person's not an expert. But if you actually look at pretty much anybody who has a platform, they are not the best at their field. I can't think of a single example of this where like literally the top number one person is the one with the platform. And the reason why is simple. Like you can't be number one and also have a platform because it just takes too many resources in either way. You look at me, any other computer science, software engineer, creator, sure, we know how to play the game, we've got these offers, or we have the credentials, but there are way, way, way better actual engineers and people in the industry compared to us. Look at like in any industry where like, I don't know if you've, like Dr. Mike on YouTube, like he's like a medical YouTuber, right? He's huge. He has like 10 plus million subscribers. He is not the best doctor in the world, but he understands social media, understands marketing, and he knows how to make a good message, right? Literally any single expert online is not actually the number one expert. Sure, it helps to have like credentials, have like quote unquote an expert in a field so you can, advertise that online, but you don't have to be an expert. So my first question here is, well, what is the point of LinkedIn? Like, let's say someone doesn't want to be an influencer, a LinkedIn influencer. What is the point of posting on LinkedIn?
And I 100% support that. Whenever I teach LinkedIn workshops, I always say, don't take my workshop to mean you need to be a LinkedIn influencer. Not everybody needs to be a LinkedIn influencer. But the point of doing LinkedIn is primarily to help your career and whatever it is that your career goals are. Because you just talked about how typically the people that have the platforms are not necessarily the top people in their field. However, when you think of those topics, like if I were to think of software engineering and I were to think of to the first person that comes to mind, I should probably be thinking of some top computer scientist at like OpenAI or something. But instead I think of you because you're the one with the visibility in the platform, and visibility being the key word here. I mentioned before that one of the reasons I wasn't well liked in my department was because I got all the opportunities, but I didn't really care about school. That is a prime example of that. I was not nearly the best student, far, far from it. In fact, I was probably one of the worst students in my graduating class, but I was the one with all of the visibility. In terms of career affairs and industry, and also because of my LinkedIn, people in the industry knew who I was, and that was a catapult for my career. And so it can be mostly for I would say most industries, like when we talk about like tech, finance, or consulting, but maybe not necessarily something like the military or being in the medical field. Then it really might not help you. But especially like for the the worlds that we live in, visibility only serves to help you. So in terms of for example, when I was recruiting for full-time job offers, I was recruiting for PM at the time, which I no longer do, but I actually got reached out to by a recruiter for one of the APM programs that I was targeting. And they reached out to me first. And what ended up happening as a result of that was I skipped the first round interview because they had already vetted me. So that I don't create content about being a PM. I don't talk about that online. However, that visibility helped me get in front of the person that mattered. That helped me get past the first interview and ultimately ended up landing that offer. So in our field, having that level of visibility, even if you don't necessarily talk about software engineering on LinkedIn, it can still help you get opportunities because visibility is just getting in front of as many pairs of eyes as you can. And the cool thing about LinkedIn, we have a mutual same guy, Colin, who said that LinkedIn right now is like TikTok in 2019. Well, going off of that, LinkedIn gives you the opportunity to get in front of as many people as possible. And I mentioned earlier, you got to play a numbers game in order to get the right opportunities. Well, that's because you just need to get in front of the right set of eyes. And LinkedIn makes it a lot easier to do that because of the discoverability and the viral quote unquote potential of the platform. But it's even in our space, it's even more powerful than the virality of Instagram and TikTok because you're getting in front of hiring managers and CEOs and other professionals. So that's the point of posting on LinkedIn is visibility for your industry and getting more opportunities. And if you're already someone who's very, very well established in your field, you might not necessarily be a college grad who's looking for their first job. You might be a senior staff software engineer who's already got like 10, 15 years on their resume. Well, then it's like the next opportunity. Even if you are not necessarily looking, I find that the best opportunities come to you when you're not necessarily looking, and LinkedIn can help bring you those, as well as like if you are, you mentioned that I helped me get like Harvard speaking opportunities and becoming a LinkedIn learning instructor. Again, the whole expert thing, my LinkedIn learning course is about personal branding. I seriously, seriously doubt that I'm the most qualified person in the world to teach personal branding. But it was because of my LinkedIn that I had that visibility, and they knew that not only was I wanting that opportunity, but because of my own personal brand, they trusted me to do that. So also, like building on top of the visibility, it's also trust. Because if you talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about, it builds authority and credibility in whatever it is that you're trying to talk about, and which can result in, for some people, I know it's resulted in book deals, which is crazy, but it can result in speaking engagements or opportunity to teach a course. I've even gotten, aside from like my guest speaking opportunities for like student organizations, I have gotten to guest lecture classes at college, which is crazy. I remember it was so sentimental to me, but I got to the semester right after I graduated, I got to guest lecture a class at my own school. It was a class that I had taken. So that was really, really sentimental and special to me. But that is the type of opportunities that the visibility and the credibility from posting on LinkedIn can bring you.
LinkedIn is a special case of platform because of who's on there and what it's for, right? There's nobody on LinkedIn who either isn't hiring or recruiting, or it's something, it's all related to careers, right? If you look at other platforms like Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, that's everything. That's all over the place. You have like Mr. Beast on YouTube, right? So LinkedIn is such a unique opportunity. And I really feel like the thing we're talking about here is availability bias, right? If you just have a lot of stuff out there and people are seeing your stuff, they're way more likely to think of you first. Another person that just keeps coming to mind is Sajad Kader. I swear to God, that guy, if he wants an interview at any big tech company, I don't care what it is, like Google, Microsoft, it literally does not matter. Meta, that guy can just walk into basically any big tech office and at least be interviewed because he has one of the, if not the biggest software engineering platform on LinkedIn and just in general, in terms of like total number of followers. So he literally interviewed the CEO of Microsoft. Like, that guy's insane. So I think that's a really good case study of like the power of having a large personal brand. Another thing you mentioned is that the most qualified people, in my experience, the most qualified people are actually kind of shitty teachers often. Like, like Masterclass. Masterclass is this website where they get all these celebrities who are like super qualified to teach courses. The courses are kind of suck because sure, Steph Curry is like the best 3-point shooter in the entire world, but he is not a teacher. He is a performer. He succeeds on the court. He's not a coach, right? So when he's telling you like, just do it like this, right? That doesn't actually translate to something someone can replicate and actually do. So I want to circle back on the playbook for LinkedIn. So pretend like I'm a computer science major. I'm a first year, second year, third year. I'm lost. I barely even have a LinkedIn profile. What's the step-by-step playbook, week by week, month by month to maximize the platform?
First step, if you're starting from zero, is filling out and optimizing your profile. So like, LinkedIn kind of, when you first like create a LinkedIn account, it kind of takes you through that step-by-step tutorial. But if you've already like created one, but you kind of ditched it, it's not going to give you that step-by-step. So start with a profile photo. People want to be able to put a face to a name. It's very easy. You don't need a professional headshot. My very first few profile photos on LinkedIn were not professional headshots. Get someone with an iPhone, portrait mode, have them take a picture of you against a blank wall. Doesn't even matter if you don't have the right outfit. This is hilarious to me. My 2023 profile photo, because I roughly change my profile photo every year. It was a picture of me taken on a brick wall, and it was summertime, and I didn't think that the top I was wearing was necessarily professional, but I really liked the photo. So I went into Canva and I used the magic AI edit tool and I edited my shirt. What was so funny about that was somebody asked me later, they're like, that white blouse on you looks so nice. Where'd you get it? I'm like, it doesn't exist because AI made it. So great use case for AI, but start with the profile photo. And then your headline and your header image is the second, like, most important thing, because that's the first thing people see. It should tell it in a nutshell, and it should read in less than 10 seconds who you are and what it is your objective is with your career at that moment. So there was a point in my life, it's different now because I graduated and I completely pivoted my career. But at one point it said CSE honors student at UNR. I think I'd only done I did 6 Disney internships. So it was like 3 or 4x Disney intern or something like that. And I think I happened to be featured in a couple of news outlets pretty early in college. Like, I was featured by our local Nevada newspaper because I did second place in a hackathon and then won an engineering pitch competition. So I put, featured in Nevada today, and kind of vanity metrics like that. But the cool thing about that is it gives you talking points, and if you can do anything to catch people's eye. A great example is I had a friend who went to Columbia, and she used to be what's the word I'm looking for? She used to be an athlete representing her country. It was Taipei, I think, at figure skating, because we were both figure skaters, and it had that in her bio, and I was like, wow, that's an eye-catching thing to say that you represented a country at world competitions in figure skating. So just stuff like that. And then your about section should be like a solid 60-second elevator pitch of you, and then obviously filling out your experience section, education section. So that's the first step, is just filling every section out, because LinkedIn has a ranking system and it'll rank you based on how complete your profile is. So just make sure you complete every section. That's number one. The second thing is making sure that your profile kind of tells a story. I am a firm believer that your resume should not be one-to-one with your LinkedIn, because your resume is curated. It should be, stuff that's relevant to the job that you're applying for. But LinkedIn, on the other hand, should act more like a portfolio of work of everything you've done. I mean, I literally have everything I've ever done, from my high school still on there. The volunteer things that I did in high school are still on there. And even this is so funny, I have my pageant titles on there. And people are like, why would you put that on there? Because that's not really professional related. And I'm like, well, that's debatable, because it's leadership related and it's also volunteering related. And that, one of my pageant titles was actually one of the things that caught the eye of the guy who gave me my very first internship offer at a startup. And so it was just another talking point. That's the thing. People forget that networking and getting a job, it's all based on people. And if you can give people more talking points, or maybe find a point of reference, that's the thing, is when you're hiring someone, you have to put yourself in the mindset of the manager of, I don't know this person. They're a stranger, which is why referrals have, sometimes have the power that they do. But if you are meeting someone for the first time, you don't know them, the best thing that you can do to make them trust you and to help them feel like they're getting to know you is give them points of reference that are familiar to them. So whether that's if you share where you're from, or if you are fans of the same sport, oh my gosh, I cannot tell you what a networking hack it has become for me to become really well versed in certain sports. That's because it gives you a talking point. So getting back to the LinkedIn thing, your entire LinkedIn profile should give you as many talking points as possible, which is why it should be a full portfolio of everything you've ever done. And then after you've fully optimized your profile, which, by the way, this whole process should probably take you about an hour or so. And then from there, just make it a habit to regularly update your LinkedIn profile whenever something happens. And then as far as getting started, if you're a little internet shy and you don't necessarily know what to post, if you have literally anything, I think people really undersell and undercelebrate their wins, especially when you're a young person. If you had your name come out on a research paper, if you won a competition at your school, if you have a project you're really proud of, my gosh, post about it. I know that it might seem, oh gosh, here we go with the word. It might seem cringe, but there's value in it, because there's value in your story. And it's really funny when people always ask me, they're like, well, I don't have any value in my story because I haven't accomplished anything yet. Yes, you have. I guarantee you, you've probably accomplished at least something in your life. And what people fail to recognize, and this is actually something that's really sad to me, but people have negated their value. They've like boiled it down to just where I've worked and the accomplishments and like the money that I've made. That's not the intrinsic value that we have as people. The intrinsic value that we have as people is the lives that we've lived and the stories we have to share and the perspectives that we have to share. That is what gives you value. And so when people, I always say that my networking approach is, what can I provide value to this other person, or how can I provide value to this other person? People that are early in their work career come to me and they're like, "Well, I don't have any value to give." That's wrong. That's not true. You do have value to give. It's in your perspective, in your opinion, and the old people like to call it the fresh set of eyes that you bring. So I think I went on a tangent there, but that's the value you have to give. So don't be afraid to share that. And that's why when I talked about, documenting what you're learning, that's what I started with when I started posting on LinkedIn. I was 18 years old. I was not, again, I don't believe in the concept of the expert, but I wasn't nearly close to being an expert in anything. I was a beginner at everything, but I was just sharing what I was learned. And that had value to other people my age because they wanted to learn what I was learning as well. But I had a huge audience. In fact, a lot of my audience is still mid to senior level professionals. And I asked them all the same thing. Why do you follow me? Like, why is my perspective even valuable to you? And they say the same thing, which is you present something in a way that I had never thought about before. Or even if you're saying something that I already know, you're presenting it in a way that I've never heard before, and it's eye-opening. So don't be afraid to share your perspective, but that's basically the 3 steps is start with filling out your LinkedIn profile to improve your LinkedIn ranking. Start and make sure you try like optimizing it. I talked about like SEO, like putting certain keywords in there, and then posting. And then there's one more step also. Oh, engaging with your community. LinkedIn is all about community and creating dialogue. So I know people say it gets like, exhausting to like, comment on whoever's. Connect with people that you know. That way, when you're like commenting on engaging on things, it feels authentic. For me, for example, all of my friends are on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is how I engage with my friends. I know that sounds sad, but a lot of my friends are also creators. And when I'm engaging with them, that's me engaging with my community, which also improves your LinkedIn ranking. But it doesn't feel inauthentic or inorganic to me because I'm just like congratulating my friends on things that they're doing, or, if they post about something that they learn and it's like, oh, wow, that's really cool. I didn't know that. So that's like 4 steps is create your profile to improve your LinkedIn ranking, optimize it for keywords, start posting, and then also don't forget to engage with your community.
On the note of posting, we work with a lot of students to help them actually get jobs in tech, and LinkedIn is a huge part of that strategy. We have them post at least once a month minimum. A lot of them don't know what to post, and we have a simple framework that really reflects everything you said there. The first thing is what is obvious to you is amazing to others. And like you mentioned, people don't realize how much of an expert they are in all these niche areas. Like if you know even a little bit more than the average person, you can share about it, you can post about it. So what we recommend is just showing your work. Like, what is a project you've worked on? Oh, you competed in this hackathon. Take a little selfie, put about the hackathon you did. You did some research opportunity. You traveled to a conference, put a photo. I think you do a great job of that, by the way. So just showing what you're doing, showing your work. And even if you don't have anything there, just share your perspective, right? Like share advice, share tips, share some like insights you've learned. Like let's say you move to LA for the first time for an internship. Be like, here are 3 things I learned about living in LA and who LA is for and who LA is not for. And put a photo of you by the Hollywood sign. Right? Like that is enough to actually get some activity on the platform.
I want to say that is a perfect example because word for word, what you just said, I did a post in 2022. It was 5 things I learned in my Disney internship. So simple. And it was, I have to admit, this is like one of those things that's primed to go viral simply because of the photo that I posted with it. It was me, I'm a big Marvel fan. It was me doing the Spider-Man like crouch in front of Avengers Campus in Disneyland. I had my mini ears on and I had my Disney name tag dangling from my neck. And it was 5 things I learned at my Disney internship. And some of it was like very valuable and some of it was very just funny. Like the last item in that list was don't give a lifelong Disney fan a Disney discount and Disney intern money because Disney pays their interns really well because I bought literally everything. But that post went so freaking viral. And I don't know what it was about it. To me, there was nothing special about it. It's just like me doing a pose in Disneyland and talking about my Disney internship. And it was, again, very simple title, 5 things I learned in my Disney internship. But it went so viral. So literally word for word, exactly what you just said is a great template.
Absolutely. And I think the photo makes a huge difference, right? Like just having a photo, and not just any photo, like a photo which is almost like proof of work. Like I see on LinkedIn, people just have a photo at like the Google office. in front of like,
People love that. People love a good Google Office photo.
like what a classic strategy. Like I'm probably gonna go to the Meta office and just take photos in front of like
I'm
those
going to the Meta
signs.
office on Friday.
Let's go. Because like it's so powerful how much that like visual proof is. But you mentioned or you hinted at it earlier. Talk to me about networking. Like what are some underrated networking hacks people can use to get jobs today? And are referrals worth it or not?
Okay, so starting on networking, shameless self plug. I talk about this in my LinkedIn Learning course, but 33% networking rule. A third of the people that you network with should be your peers, people that are at the same level of you in life and in your career. So people that are around the same age. If you're in college, then there are people taking classes. It's your classmate basically, and your intern colleagues. Oh my gosh, I'm still friends with so many of my intern friends that I made in college. That's a third. And the reason is because those are the people that are going to be your future coworkers, co-founders, or collaborators, or whatever. And you, again, truthfully, you never know where people in college are going to go, and that's not why you should make friends with people. But I mean, you just truly never know. This is a crazy one, but like I got to have lunch with my boyfriend because my boyfriend works in finance and I wanted to set him up with a role model and a mentor. We got to have lunch with a managing director of a major international French bank. And people were like, wow, how did you pull that off? And I'm like, he's my dad's childhood best friend. And my dad did not grow up wealthy. He grew up in poverty. He says he likes to say he grew up in the hood, and his friend went to school together. And it just so happened that both of them ended up accomplishing a lot in life. So you really never know where the people around you are going to go in life. Imagine how, like, Bill Gates' classmates' fault. So that's the third. Another third should be people that are way, way ahead of you in life. So think people that are like double your age are, hopefully you can get these caliber people, but like CEOs or like senior level executives and people like that, people that just have a lot of wisdom to give you and can hopefully help you. And they don't necessarily have to be in your field, but if they are, then they can help you avoid some of the missteps or mistakes that they have made and maybe help you skip, 10 years of mistakes or something like that. That's one third. And those are the people that are become what I call mentors, sponsors, and advocates. And there's a key difference between all three of those. A mentor is someone who gives you advice, you can soundboard ideas off of, but they may not necessarily play a proactive role in helping you succeed. And then there's an advocate. I watch a lot of true crime shows, so that's why I'm using this analogy. But in the police force, they call it like your rabbi. And your rabbi is someone when you're a cop, is someone that looks out for your career and your best interest when you're not in the room. That is what a sponsor is someone who looks out for opportunities for you, projects for you to be on, maybe even funding. Like, I have a friend whose company recently got acquired, and her board member, in a sense, was her sponsor because he helped her get acquired. So that's like one of my first, I started a nonprofit my senior year or right after I graduated. And my first grant came from one of my mentors and career sponsors. That's a third. And then another third should be people that are younger than you, behind you in life, and most likely kind of the opposite of the third I just talked about. The mentors, the career sponsors, and the advocates are people that you more than likely may not necessarily be able to provide value to, and it's mostly them providing value to you. But then on the flip side of that, you should also be networking with people that probably don't have a lot to give you and a value to give you, but you can provide a lot of value for. And the reason that's so important for me is because I've asked all of my mentors the same thing. I have about like 7 or 8 mentors. Why do you spend so much time, and in a lot of cases money, on me when you may not even see a tangible return on it in the future? And they all told me the same thing, which is, number one, I want to be part of your journey. But number two, I had people like me mentoring me when I was your age in life, and now it is my turn to pay it forward. And I don't think you ever have to wait till you're a certain age or wait till you're a certain stage in life to pay it forward. Personally, like I said, I try to keep it evenly balanced. I have about 8 mentors, and then I personally am mentoring about 6 people right now. And they're all like a couple years younger than me, 19, 20. They're in college, and some of them are in the same fields as me. Some of them are like in adjacent fields. And I just help them with and it's not even just like career stuff. It's like financial advice, dating advice, life advice, stuff like that. But that's your third of networking and what should comprise. And that will help you advance in your career, but also be the most fulfilling approach to networking. My second thing about networking, and I mentioned this earlier, is always strive to go into whatever interaction you're going into with how can I help or provide value to this person, not the other way around. Because people do not like to feel used. And I think that our generation has gotten way too transactional. Networking is not meant to be transactional. It's meant to be relational. So seek to establish relationships with people. And the easiest way, oh my gosh, to establish a relationship with a person is how can I help or provide value to you? Literally, when I meet someone who I'm like, okay, I want to form a relationship with this person, that is the first thing I open with. And what's funny is that for people that are very, advanced in their careers, very successful, that's a shock for them to hear that because they're so used to people every single day asking them, what can you do for me? That they're not used to hearing it flipped. And that's why it's so effective. So that's my thing about networking. As far as referrals, I'm half and half because I think that cold emails and cold DMs can be used mindfully. So for me, cold DMs and cold emails are all about quality over quantity and putting a lot of thought and research and time into each message I send out. Like I've heard some people say, oh, I send out like 100 cold DMs a week. I don't do that. I probably send out for various different projects that I'm working on in my life. It's never the same thing. I probably send out a total of 5 cold emails a week, like one a day for, again, different projects. But the reason is that if you put a lot of effort and a lot of thought into a cold email, you're a lot more likely to get a response. But on the note of referrals, it really only makes a difference if you're getting a referral from a decision maker or if like that person is like that level of like career sponsor advocate for you. So I mentioned that a recruiter reached out to me about an APM program that I was targeting. The reason that that was so important is because he wasn't, not to say he wasn't like the judge, jury, and executioner in that entire interview process. However, he was the person that basically had the final judgment call of who made it to final rounds. And he also had his word held heavy value in terms of who made it into the program because of just the way that their corporate structure is. And so for me, like him reaching out to me, he was the decision maker, and that's what really mattered. But if you're just getting like a referral from someone random at a company, it probably won't help you that much. Like if you get big companies, you get a referral at a company that has like 50,000 employees with hundreds of teams. If you get a referral from someone on a completely different team, it's probably not going to help you that much because the recruiter doesn't know that person, the hiring manager doesn't know that person. So what does their word mean to them? Maybe not that much. So I think that referrals can help, but really only in the situation where either A, it's the decision maker who's referring you, or B, where the person who's referring you is your career sponsor and advocate and will swing a heavy bat for you and like knows you really well and can vouch for you on a very personal level. So I think that they help, but only to that degree in those situations.
Yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from. I have a slightly different take where I think there was a study, and maybe you've heard of this and you can, or if you disagree with the number here, I think it was 5 to 10% of Google applicants had a referral, but 30 to 40% of people who were hired had a referral. So there's clearly some kind of asymmetry. Now, obviously, correlation is not causation. Maybe people who are just really smart know how to get referrals, and therefore they were hired more often. We don't know if the referral itself got them hired. But based on what I've seen, sometimes it helps you get into a different pool, right? Like, let's say I have people get referrals and they'll get rejected the next day. And they're like, oh, I got the referral, it didn't do anything. I'm like, no, you didn't get ghosted, you got rejected. That means someone actually looked at your application and said no, which is better than not hearing back for basically ever, right? So I see referrals getting you into a different pool. Also, it's a really good way to start a relationship with a mentor or someone in the industry, right? Like you set up a call with them, you just like get to know more about them, you ask them for advice, and then maybe you ask them for a referral or maybe not, right? It's just a good habit to get into, to be asking for referrals, networking with people, because often even if they give you a referral, they'll also tell you about what the interview process is like at the company. So for example, when I did my Shopify internship, I got the interview was through a referral. Like some guy gave me a referral to Shopify, talked to him, gave me advice about like, oh, the life story interview. I don't know if they still do that or not, but that was back in the day.
They do still do it, by the way.
There we go. In 2022, right? She like basically helped me, or this other person at Shopify also helped me coach me through like the life story interview. We wrote out a whole thing, memorized it, and then performed, and it actually went well. And pretty much all of the offers I've gotten have been through some kind of referral. And from what I've seen, like usually the people who have 30, 40, 50 referrals end up getting interviews. So I don't think a referral is a magic ticket, but I feel like sometimes it puts you in a different pool. Sometimes it makes it more likely that you get the interview. Plus, at smaller companies, I think it makes a bigger difference.
Definitely.
For sure. Like when it's a smaller, if it's a startup and you have a referral, you're guaranteed getting interviewed, right? Whereas if you have a referral to Amazon, like, well, Amazon does give out a lot of interviews, so maybe it'll help, but like Microsoft doesn't really do much, right? So I think it depends on a company by company basis.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice. Morgan, if anybody wants to connect with you, where should they go?
My LinkedIn handle, like the /in, is it's Morgan Young, and then on Instagram it's Morgan Ashley. The last part is spelled Leigh because my parents had to be quirky. And on TikTok it's the same, but there's a period in between the it's and the Morgan Ashley. And I think that's basically all of my social handles.
Nice. That'll all be in the description. But Morgan, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
That's today's episode of the Software Engineering Accelerator podcast. Thank you so much for watching. Now, if you want early access to every single one of these episodes, head over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or any other podcast app and follow the Software Engineering Accelerator podcast. That's right, you can listen to every episode early on the podcast apps before they get released on YouTube, so make sure to go over and follow on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and turn on notifications or check the links in the description. And finally, always remember, help will always be given to those who ask for it. So click the top link in the description if you want our help to accelerate your software engineering career and land your dream job or internship.